Now when it comes to Drake and the release of his album SSS4U, after all of the excuses, coping, and crash outs, they gotta follow through and there is no more running from the truth, as with this 21 song disaster, despite the fact that Drake and everyone around him are in such a fantasy world that they are trying to act like this record's performance is not seeing a near 50% drop off from Drake's most recent albums. In the reality of everything, the music industry, hip-hop, and the entire world is now seeing that Drake has had one of the biggest fallouts that we have seen in hip-hop history. As now that the actual numbers have come out for this record and we are looking at how this entire project is holding up, it has failed more than anybody on Drake's side of things would ever want to admit. And now before we go any further into all of this, be sure to leave a
What's up, G-Gang? Don't forget to drop a like on this and subscribe if you're new around here. Make sure you stay to the end because I'm going to drop my breakdown at the end. Let's get it, y'all.
Because we are really here and Drake has failed this bad with this thing. It is more important than ever to leave a like and subscribe because the Drake fans don't want you to hear about how bad this record is actually doing and how bad things are about to get for their guy now that this album has actually failed. And so, of course, with that said, when it comes to Drake and SSS4U, well, Drake is trying to act like this album belongs with the rest of his number ones and is making this thing seem like a success because it's Partynextdoor's best performing album, which I mean is only because Drake has finally taken him out of the writer's room and has actually given him somewhat of an actual role and presence that people can see. Beyond whatever they are trying to tell you, this album.
And that was my main thing with this. That's my main thing, bro. You only using him because now you need him. He been in the sweatshop for the last 10 years, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight. The boy looked depressed. And now you want to give him a shot because you need him. That's what I'm talking about. Culture vulture stuff. You still just using him because you need him.
The album has actually performed atrociously, and even with the first week numbers being 246,000, as really these numbers from streaming were barely pushing over 200,000, and the only reason why this record did nearly 250 is because Drake fans have made these pathetic plans to support the album and boost its numbers, all because they actually believe that this record is being suppressed. Overall, when you compare this record's performance to Honestly Nevermind, which had about just as low sales and streaming numbers, but when you realize that one of these records in Honestly Nevermind had half of the tracks, I mean, when you actually measure what this music means and what it represents in the industry, beyond that record being a surprise dance album that was released out of nowhere, because of just how big this album is in terms of its track list with 21 whole songs compared to most other major records that are being put out today. Overall, what's really making Drake lose it as it's exposing.
And it's funny because I remember when Chris Brown went to this technique of dropping a bunch of music on his album to get the streams higher. Like you can double your album streams by doubling the songs that's on there. Now he's hoping that one of these songs grow legs and become a hit song. That's what he's hoping and praying for. Or he's hoping the next song that they put wheels behind, meaning marketing and money, that it pops and it becomes a hit song.
The world is seeing just how low performing this record actually is the fact that when it comes to the one thing that Drake has talked about over and over again, which are top charting songs, as again, let's remember, from saying he's got more songs on the Billboard than the Beatles to going on a whole tangent on his collab with J. Cole where he was saying that he was one number one song away from MJ. Drake really reached a point where he was so chart obsessed that this meant everything to him. And again, even comparing this to the previous worst Drake album in the streaming era, Honestly Nevermind, which had 3 top 10 songs and one that reached number 1 when the album dropped in Jimmy Cooks. It's really poetic and so telling about how this entire moment in hip-hop went and where it is going, that after Drake's last number 1 song was bragging about how he is only getting bigger on these charts, and that he's ultimately gonna be bigger than the greatest artist before him, and of course this is also the song that made Kendrick come out and diss him and J. Cole in the first place. Now seeing how after Drake said this and he has to see all of his own words become Kendrick Lamar's reality because of just how much he overstepped everything on that song, seeing him now return, and after we were already in an era where for multiple albums at this point, the only reason Drake was getting number 1 songs in the first place was because the momentum and numbers from the projects were so big and not because he was creating massive cultural moments with singles like he used to back in the day or like Kendrick Lamar has been currently. Because the only thing people were talking about from these records were the gimmicks and not the actual music. Seeing Drake's downfall reach a point where because he has just failed to make genuinely great chart-topping songs and because nobody cares as well about these daunting messes of albums that he is trying to pass off now, he can't even get anywhere back near the top of the Billboard charts, and really because of this, overall just adding to why Drake is losing it over the fact of how bad this album is doing. If his career continues to perform like this record and things just continue to spiral out of control, which it seems like they are going to, well then those lines he said about being one away from Mike are gonna stand the test of time very well. as it's looking like Drake will never be able to break that record, which he was so overly confident about taking from Mike in the worst way possible. And really, with Drake currently, as everything about this SSS4U album is showing that it's not going to last on the charts, and maybe aside from one song in a few weeks, nobody is going to be talking about anything from this album other than how much it showcased that Drake's time in the center of hip-hop and music is up, and that he will never be able to get that massive deal that he wants from his label, because what this album is doing really is just laughable compared to what Drake still believes he is worth. Overall, what Drake is now realizing is that everyone really has chose Kendrick Lamar and all of the other stars running things over him. And now, because this is the reality that Drake has to deal with, and again, while adjusting to the fact that his time at the center of everything is over, there has been one thing that Drake has learned in the process of his album flopping that we are going to see a lot more from him going forward, which is that when it comes to the current state of his career, despite all of the listeners he has already lost and that he is never going to get back, he still has something he can benefit from, which comes down to the fact that being even more
me being one included, he lost me back with the ghostwriter allegations. Once it really came out how he was doing his ghostwriters and how he was doing the people around him and the people that helped him get there, because you ain't nobody without a team, I was out, my boy.
Than him. His loyal fans will believe anything he says and will continue to follow him no matter what happens. And really, despite how bad everything else looks for Drake, he has realized that he does hold something that he can use to keep being a problem in the industry at the very least. Because really, with what Drake did when the release of this album was not going as he thought and everything was showing that it was going to be a flop, was just spread lies about how this record is being suppressed by the music industry, and he played into practices that made his fan base support him and get more angry at everyone else just because things were not pulling in the numbers that he or anybody else for that matter had been used to seeing from Drake. I mean, with somebody who is trying to compete with not just a rapper as elite as Kendrick Lamar, but a star as big as Taylor Swift in the music industry and wants to be on the same playing field in terms of what they bring in and what they're worth, the fact that Drake is now at a point where because his music is flopping and not getting the attention he wants to, that Drake is just lying and playing into weird narratives to his fans to just get them more mad at everybody else for no reason other than just to get them to support what he is doing within a context that is not even real. With Drake having to result to this just to do Honestly Nevermind numbers with an album that has the tracklist length of For All the Dogs and CLB is just laughable and shows how much he has lost. And I mean, now that after all of the ridiculous things Drake has done since losing to Kendrick Lamar have really all led up to this point where we are now seeing that his albums do not work the way they once did, he better get ready to just continue to lose, because while if this record was done right, it could have been maybe used as a chance to show that he is still a top act, or maybe even in hip-hop, that despite not being number one in terms of popularity, which Kendrick of course has just taken over and made not even a debate anymore, he could still be in number two. I mean, even that is not happening because this album just did nothing to show any single person from fans he has lost to the industry as a whole. Now, whatever Drake has to offer is not some of the most boring and lackluster material that you can find in an industry where fans are starting to listen to more music that is actually moving things forward and innovating on some level more than ever. And again, just as I said, we were going to see from Drake and everyone around him that despite the fact that they are trying to make this album flop sound like some sort of a win, I mean, winners don't have to explain themselves as much as they have been trying to, because really, every single person around Drake is spiraling, as literally GNX and its 12 songs in its first week have outperformed everything Drake and OVO have put out in their first weeks recently combined, and it's not even close. And now, because of the fact that at the end of this all, this is a group of people who don't even actually like the music they are putting out or the art of it all, and have just loved running up the charts and numbers, for Drake and his fans, they don't know how to move forward right now, because actually being left with only the music and not the numbers is something they have never experienced, and it's really just so great seeing people like Ak and everyone else in OVO just completely have to redefine their identities because of this, as it's really just showing the fact that they have never been hip-hop fans and they are only Drake fans and they only like him for the most ridiculous reasons possible. And so with Drake and everything that he has been doing now, as it has already been so dull, superficial, and shallow, while we won't see it yet and Drake is not going to admit it for a very long time, down the line we are going to see Drake just detach from music when he eventually accepts the fact that he lost it all in terms of being the top guy on the charts, because for so long already, it has clearly been about nothing else besides the numbers for him, and now the fact that he is losing to everybody he has beefed with, whether that's Kendricks, SZA, and The Weeknd, his label, or so much else, as Drake is not making music that is trying to move himself and challenge his skills. Without the numbers and excitement of putting something out and seeing if it will start a trend like he did for his last albums, and really that was the only reason why he was doing anything that was so clear. Drake is quickly going to get bored of making the same bad music, but with returns that are looking like SSS4U's first week, and because of this, well, we don't know where this is all going to go and how this will affect everything happening with Drake yet. As this year continues and we see Drake—
No, bro, I know where it's going to go. If you add a double track list, you get what I'm saying? When you go 20 plus songs, it means that you're unsure. It means that we got to make sure we get our numbers. This started maybe 8 years ago with people wanting to do more songs per album. And with that, they got a higher return return on how many streams they got. This is well-known knowledge within the music industry. Now, my whole thing is, why are you parading around DJ Akademiks when you know the inside, you know what's going on, you know how this thing is going to perform? It's about to bomb like a bad movie. It's about to bomb like a bad movie. They're going to put a bunch of marketing dollars into the next song. If the next song don't pop off, we got a problem. We got a major problem. They're going to pick which song they want to do. If the next song don't pop off, we got a problem. This album isn't going to grow legs. So we see him doing different stunts with the drones. He's doing stunts with people in the crowd. He's doing stunts with the numbers on his album. He's even doing stunts. You notice how he's now trying to do an album with J. Cole, and he just got done doing one with Partynextdoor. Bro, how come you ain't doing an album by yourself? I mean, you did one here and there, but now you trying to do them back to back. For all that, you could have gave Lil Wayne an album back in the day when you was on fire. See how selfish boy be? And then look, this is what I'm saying to you, gang. He only want to now do an album with Partynextdoor because now he needs him. You think like, oh, on face value, when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, he finally putting him on. Man, he not even putting him on. He needs somebody who in his corner. Why not use somebody who's already on your label? He already stuck for probably another 6 albums. You ain't going nowhere. So even if I do put you on, all the money's still mine. Yeah, it would make sense that you would finally do that. And even though that wasn't the best decision, you could have got somebody who was more popping. That 250,000 y'all sold was all from Drake. Party ain't got no motion like that. For all that, you could have did an album with Ty Dolla $ign or something like that. Yeah, you could have got somebody with some more motion to actually sell some albums, but you didn't want to do that because that would be probably putting somebody on. All right, so it's your boy, What's Up G. Don't forget to drop a like on this if you love this content, because I love making it for y'all. Subscribe if you're new around here. And if you want more in-depth Drake and Kendrick Lamar breakdowns, make sure you click this button right here before it disappears. Ain't nobody told you they love y'all. I love y'all. I'm out, y'all.